Sometimes I really don't want to get up at, 5:20 in the morning to get my workout done. I really don't. But then I think, okay, how good I'm going to feel after this, how accomplished or ready to tackle my day. Throughout the life of women, we have so many ups and downs when it comes to hormones, from pre-puberty to post-menopause. It's actually doing yourself a disservice if you do not engage in any type of activity while pregnant. Chances are you're going to have a miserable pregnancy or harder pregnancies that way, a harder delivery, a longer delivery, living in a society that prioritizes convenience over everything else. Always looking for the secret pill, the quick fix. When it comes to health and weight loss, there is no quick fix.
Welcome to the Superhuman Blueprint Podcast.
Welcome, my friends, to the Superhuman Blueprint Podcast. I am your host, Drew Griesel from Primal Wellness Coaching. Today, we are joined by Morgane Burke. Morgane, like myself, is a fitness and wellness coach. Morgane is a Colorado-based fitness professional and a mother of two, also like myself. She was actually born and raised in the south of France before coming to the U.S. in her early 20s. And since beginning on her path in coaching, she has helped numerous men and women reach their fitness goals and turn their lives around. She decided to create the Body Transformation Accelerator to help women who struggle finding balance and control to gain a sustainable and healthy lifestyle. Morgane focuses on holistic nutrition and comprehensive training to accommodate the needs and capabilities of each and every one of her clients. Morgane, welcome to the Superhuman Blueprint Podcast.
Hi, Drew. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I am freezing right now, and
You are?
it is entirely self-inflicted. It's probably about 75 degrees outside here, but I decided instead of having my coffee this morning, I would get in my cold plunge. So
Yeah.
You caught me about 15 minutes post cold plunge right now.
Okay.
And usually I go right into a workout from the cold plunge, but today we're going into conversation. So
Yeah.
this is a new test of how I function as my body warms itself up.
Yeah, it's a great way to do it. That's usually how I do it. I started cold plunging pretty recently.
Did you?
Yeah, I just bought one of those portable ones.
Yeah.
And they're great. Doesn't need to be that fancy, It's just cold water.
Yeah.
But yeah, usually I don't run in the shower right after I let my body warm up on its own, just to kind of give me a little metabolism kick.
Yeah, you get that thermogenic effect.
Yeah, and that's been working great for me. So try to do it if I can 2 or 3 times a week. Doesn't always happen that way, but
yeah. Well, good for you. And there's a lot of benefits of that. Actually, coincidentally, I am just finishing up editing on a podcast I did with one of the owners of the company I bought my cold plunge from. So
okay,
keep an eye on the podcast, and you can hear my chat with him.
Yeah, I definitely want to hear more about it, because I feel like there are so many different protocols depending on what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah,
so it's always good to learn.
It's amazing, and I don't know that the cold plunge sales folks will appreciate me making this analogy, but I consider it to be kind of like a triple shot of espresso and a slap in the face.
Yeah,
really gets me going.
Depending how cold you go, but yes, absolutely.
I keep this one just above freezing.
Yeah. So what, like a 35-ish?
37. That's as low as this one goes. So that's what I keep it as. To usually hover somewhere between 37 and 39.
Yeah. That's a good spot.
Yep. All right. So how are you doing? How's things going over there in Colorado?
Pretty good. Things are going great. I think, with the nicer weather, and I mean, I'm not holding my breath here, but it's been nicer the past few days.
Right.
I think people are probably looking forward to, be outdoor, be more active, and just get a little healthier
Yeah.
before the summer. Maybe some women want that summer bikini body, whatever that is.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's just a good time of the year.
Yeah. It's starting to become beautiful here as well. We've had actually quite a bit of rain, but I'm thinking after this recording, I might go for a run because it's just so nice outside.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. So Morgane, obviously we've met, we've chatted, but I don't really know your story. So I would love to hear your story, kind of your journey. You're an immigrant, right? So you came to America and started a family, and at somewhere along the way you got into the whole health and fitness thing, and then it seems like that's taken the course of going into kind of lifestyle and the holistic approach. So I'd just love to hear the story of your journey to what got you here today.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, as you mentioned, I was born and raised in the south of France, a city called Toulouse, so pretty close, probably an hour and a half away from the Spanish border, so south.
Okay.
And I grew up with a very health conscious mom in terms of nutrition.
Mm-hmm.
She was not a nutritionist, she wasn't a doctor or anything like this, but she kept herself very much educated on what's healthy, what's not, always cooking. She was a stay-at-home mom, so I got the chance to just enjoy her cooking pretty much every day. Buying fresh produce, buying organic, all that stuff.
Wow,
And at the
cool.
time, and at the time that was not super popular and that was way more expensive,
Yeah.
not nearly as accessible. So that's kind of, how I grew up. I never, until later on in life, I've never ate the school cafeteria lunch or anything like that. My mom was picking me up, dropping me back off. We have way more time for lunch
Yeah.
than in the US.
Right.
But so really, I kind of grew up like this with that nutrition piece in mind. But I've never been an athlete. I was never into sports really. I never really played any sport at school, just maybe for a second. Until when I moved to the US as an au pair just to learn English. I was not supposed to stay.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. I was studying tourism back
Okay.
home. So, you kind of need to speak English to work in tourism, whatever you want to do.
It's funny. I've never met an au pair before until last summer. I was visiting a friend of mine in Northern California, and he and his wife have an au pair for their two daughters, who is also from France.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, my neighbor has they have an au pair, and I feel like they're kind of all over. But back when I did it, so it was 2008 when I came to the country.
Okay.
And I was matched in a family in Vail. So not too bad.
Yeah, that's cool.
So obviously the environment kind of pushes you to be more active, more outdoorsy.
Mm-hmm.
Family was awesome. They showed me so many different areas. I started to snowboard a little bit, and I got into fitness. So I started with yoga. I started with Pilates. And then I started to do a little bit more weightlifting and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of became a routine. So that on top of the nutrition piece that I've kind of already had, I put two and two together, and that slowly but surely became just a lifestyle for me, a routine. And then of course there are the college years that are challenging in that sense, because a lot of going out, partying. But I feel like even though I was going through that phase, like a lot of young people,
Yep.
I still had that nutrition piece always. I always pay attention to what I was eating, and it was not always perfect, especially at the time.
Yep.
But I always kept myself in check when it comes to that. So after I was done being an au pair, I decided I wanted to continue studying in the US. So I continued with a bachelor in hospitality management. So I wrapped this up, and after that I got hired at the Four Seasons, which was an awesome experience, and I continued with the company for a few more years. That's where I actually met my husband.
Okay.
Yeah. So they transferred me to. I could no longer stay in the U.S. because of immigration
Mm-hmm.
issue. My visa was up and so whatnot. So they transferred me to French Polynesia in Bora Bora
Oh,
on their property over there, which was an amazing experience. My husband went to, move there to be with me, and we decided
wow.
to come back to the US. It was just a little too challenging to live there under those circumstances.
Okay.
So we came back to the US, and I continued my hospitality career until COVID, like
Okay.
a lot of people. Um, and when, we kind of rode the COVID wave, I got pregnant with my second baby. And then I really decided that that's not a life that I wanted to go back to. It
Mm-hmm.
was not, it just wouldn't work with being a mother of two young children. And I really, really wanted to be in the fitness industry. I really wanted to start my own business. And I was just trying to figure out how to do so.
Okay.
So I had a lot of time to think that through, obviously, as we were all locked.
Right.
And so I came up with a concept of in-home personal training. So
Mm-hmm.
not really any nutrition part in it, just a pure in-home personal training. So
Okay.
I got my certification through an ASM and all that stuff, and I started to work on a project. And when I was ready, we launched because I looked for a business partner. So at the time, it was just the two of us.
Mm-hmm.
And it went great. I mean, we had some great clients. I feel like the concept was very well received
Okay.
because extremely convenient, obviously. And it went well for a while. I decided to take another route because of internal issue with my previous partner, not because
Sure.
of the nature of the business itself. But also I thought that, something was really missing in that concept. Obviously, the nutrition piece was missing,
Yeah.
but also the entire mindset. So when I rebuilt on my own, I decided to incorporate everything together and to work on a different concept that, looking to implement all those aspects of fitness.
Yep.
So that's where I am right now.
I
It's
love
been
it.
going great. It's been going great. So
I have a lot of similarities in my story. Kind of what got me to where I am in the whole fitness and wellness space, which is, I think, in a similar place as you. And I will say I did not do as well as you sticking to nutrition for some of my younger years when I was first out on my own. I was pretty terrible, but I came back around, and I was raised by parents that did have nutrition in mind. So I always kind of had that, but I lost it for a bit. So good for you for sticking with it through college and all that.
I mean, it was not perfect either. Trust me.
Right. Yeah, but for me, so I've been teaching martial arts for years, not as a career, but just kind of as a fun thing that I do, because I've been a martial artist for a long time. And during COVID, we had to close the studio, right? We couldn't have in-person classes with people putting their hands all over each other. So we shut down, and we're just trying to think, how do we keep this studio alive, right? How do we keep our members, our students engaged so that, one, they stay active and healthy, and two, they come back once we're able to reopen. And so we started doing Zoom classes, which were largely just kind of a combination of like fitness and like cardio kickboxing type of stuff. And then I started making workout videos and posting them to the YouTube page. And that's kind of what got me started on fitness. And then I just saw the health of people all around me just kind of degrading with the lockdown, and it was extremely saddening. So that's when I also pursued my fitness and nutrition certifications through NASM as well. And from there, I just kind of discovered my passion in fitness and in wellness. And like you, it kind of starts in fitness, right? But then you realize that if people don't have so many other aspects of their life dialed in, then the fitness will only get them so far.
Yeah. Oh,
Yep.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me about the program. You have a particular program that you run for your clients. So let's hear about that.
Yeah. So I do a few different things depending on, what the goals are, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a personal trainer, so I train in person, obviously. I do nutrition as well separately.
Mm-hmm.
That could be put in a combo. But the program that you're mentioning is called Body Transformation Accelerator, and that's a 90-day program that incorporates everything. So the nutrition, the workout, the mindset, the habit forming, accountability, and everything, pretty much. That's an hybrid. So during this program, they will get some in-person session with me or virtual, depending on where
Okay.
they
Sure.
are, where their location is.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to the workout, it's mainly on their own. They follow a program that I customize and build for them.
Yep.
But they follow it on their own. Nutrition, obviously, the same thing. But they also have a coaching session and accountability and support and all of that. And I really emphasize on the mindset and the habit forming. Because you can give people, a full, customized, very well-rounded and tailored workout, as well as the recipes, the grocery list and everything. But it's kind of handing let's say you go to IKEA to pick up a piece of furniture,
Mm-hmm.
so you have the screws, you have the bolts, you have the, the wood and all of that, but you don't have the instructions. You don't have the assembly, the paper to follow.
Yep.
It's kind of the same thing. It's great to just write programs and give everything, but if you don't tell them how to implement that in their lives, it's just not going to stick. It's
Yep.
just not going to work out. So for that program, we dive pretty deep into
Okay.
habits and how to make it work and how to sustain it. Because doing something for 30, 60, 90 days, it's great, but it needs to be an everyday thing. It needs to be second nature. It needs to be a lifestyle. The way the program is designed, I strongly believe that if you follow it the way it's supposed to be followed for the 90 days and you do it successfully,
Mm-hmm.
you should be in a really, really good spot to continue on your own.
Okay.
So that's really the goal, without having to seek help from another personal trainer or another nutrition specialist.
Right.
Because you don't want to do that for the rest of your life. I mean, how this is just not reasonable. You want to incorporate that for yourself and be in control, and not that you know how to do it. Maybe here and there you can attend a class or you can hire a trainer just to switch things up, keep it interesting, but you should be able to know how to do that on your own.
Yep. I agree.
It doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't. It really doesn't.
And it's interesting how the good fitness coaches really become lifestyle coaches, because I mean, similar to like a doctor or a health professional, the goal is almost to work yourself out of a job, right? Where you teach them to take care of themselves. You're the professional on the front end and you give them what they need, but you give it to them so that they can take that and carry forward with the life that they want to live with, the health and the energy and the body composition and all of these things. And then it's like, okay, well, come back to me when you're ready to level up, or come back to me if you feel yourself slipping and you need to kind of kickstart things back in order. But let me give you the things that you need to be successful on your own.
Exactly. And I can't even begin to tell you how many people that I spoke with during a discovery call, consultation call, whatnot, tell me that I've worked with personal trainers before,
Mm-hmm.
and they just feel like they would never be able to do it on their own. Because the programming, it's designed in a way that the clients cannot do it on their own.
Yeah.
A lot of very complicated compound movements, borderline Olympian lifting,
Right.
which that is not the goal. And they do that for a reason. Obviously, they need to feel, it's just like a recurring income for them. People keep going back to them, and it does make sense.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just not going to make a change in lives. It is not going to contribute to prevention of chronic disease or just the bigger picture.
Right.
And that's really what I'm trying to do, and I know a lot of other coaches out there are trying to do as well.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And so you say you take a holistic approach. So what does that mean as far as your program goes?
Holistic approach, I mean, especially with nutrition,
Mm-hmm.
it's going back to the basics, eating as close to nature as possible.
Okay.
I am not into counting macronutrients. I'm not into weighing the food. None of that. None of that. Not into eliminating.
My wife would appreciate that. That's the one thing that any trainer would ask her to do that she absolutely despises.
I mean, just one question, how sustainable is it? It is not. You're going to
Mm-hmm.
do that for the rest of your life, just bringing your little scale and counting your macro. I mean, it doesn't, you can have an idea, ballpark. I focus on, for most of the clients, I focus on protein intake because most of the time it's too low.
Yep.
So yes, we're going to raise that, but I'm not going to have them count. They need to know, they need to have a good idea of, what a chicken breast represents in terms of grams of protein,
Mm-hmm.
a 6-ounce steak. What are the good sources of proteins, and how to kind of implement that in your daily diet without feeling, forced, or without that to be
Mm-hmm.
difficult.
Yeah.
So that's what I call holistic.
Okay.
I'm not a huge fan of, powders, supplements, all that stuff.
Okay.
I'm not totally against protein powder. I mean, I do recommend a couple of brands that are pretty clean.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the protein powders out there are not. They're
Right.
hiding a lot of inflammatory ingredients, refined
Yep.
sugar, and all of that stuff. So there's a couple of brands that are acceptable. As I tell my clients, a protein powder should never be a meal replacement unless you're on the go, or okay, every once in a while. I get it.
Mm-hmm.
But it shouldn't be an everyday thing.
Right.
If you feel like you need a little more protein and you want an easy way to incorporate it on top of everything as a little snack or something like that, that's one thing.
Yep.
But it shouldn't be a meal replacement, and it shouldn't be counting on those protein powder. And the biggest reason is whatever amount of protein that's on the package, so 10 gram, 20 gram per scoop, whatever that is, that's not the amount of protein that's going to be absorbed by your body,
Right.
because it's processed.
Yep.
So the best way to absorb protein is to eat the real food, the meat, the eggs, the fish, all
Yep.
that stuff. And to get all those, 9 essential amino acids,
Mm-hmm.
because the body don't produce them.
Right. One of the most simple hacks to improve your overall quality of life, including things like energy, immunity, mood, and more, is to get better sleep. And I am going to help you sleep better, completely free. The thing is, sleep is easy to ignore. Life gets busy and sleep loses priority. There's a problem, though. Where many of you want to sleep better, you can't seem to. The thing is, so many things have become a part of a normal lifestyle in our society, which are secretly sabotaging many aspects of our wellness, including sleep. And that is why I created the Hack Your Sleep program. In this program, I am going to give you a number of low to no cost, simple to implement hacks you can start doing right now to fix your sleep. By using these tips and hacks, you will fall asleep easier, stay asleep longer, and most importantly, sleep deeper, allowing your body to cycle through the many stages of sleep multiple times throughout the night. That is how recovery happens. That is how you wake up feeling rested, energized, and ready to unleash your best self. And because you're a Superhuman Blueprint podcast listener, I am going to give you access to this course completely free. Go to hackyoursleep.net and use code SUPERHUMAN at checkout. That is hackyoursleep.net. Superhuman at checkout. This will get you 100% off and on the path to getting better sleep than you've had since you were a kid.
So that's what I call holistic approach.
Okay.
Simple basics.
Yep. Well, simple is what most people, including people like myself, need. You get too complicated, and I'm just like, okay, well, then you come over and cook my food for me because
Yeah.
I can't figure this out.
It doesn't have to be complicated. The recipe, I have so many recipes depending on, tolerance, preferences,
Mm-hmm.
restriction, whatnot. None of them are complicated. None of them.
Do you have situations where you have clients that are just, they're having a hard time following the protocol? You know, they meet with you and you do some things in person, but a lot of it is self-driven, right? So do you have situations where the self-driven part becomes a challenge, where people are not doing the workouts, or maybe not putting 100% into the workouts? Maybe they're giving themselves more cheat days than they should.
Yes, absolutely. It's a work in progress.
Mm-hmm.
It cannot be, they don't master the program on, day 5. No. It's a work in progress. And that's also why I ask them every week for a food journal.
Okay.
Not to be annoying, just for them to realize what they are putting in their body.
Yeah.
So basically I tell them, listen, if you follow the plan, don't write anything. I don't need to know, I already know. If you do anything else, write it down.
Okay.
So that gives me a better idea of how to approach, if changes need to be made, if they feel satisfied, if they, if they are still super hungry, if they are not hungry. Usually they are not hungry at all. But it gives me a better idea of how to help them if they're struggling,
Mm-hmm.
and it also keeps them accountable. So I ask for that food journal every week for quite a while, but
Mm-hmm.
maybe not for the entire length of the program. It kind of like depends on the client, but it's an important part. The second part is, and we go back to it on a regular basis, is habits and how to implement it.
Yeah.
And I work only with women. I don't know if I probably didn't mention that, but I only work with women now.
Okay.
A lot of them are mothers.
Yep.
Not all of them, but a lot of them. So obviously prioritizing, their health
Mm-hmm.
is always a struggle, because they're wearing so many hats. Some of them work on top of being mothers and all of that. So it is a challenge. So what we go back to during that habit forming session is, okay, tell me about your day. Starting where you open your eyes to when you go to bed and fall asleep. And we actually talk about sleep, So, and I want them to, walk me through a typical day to try to understand where that could fit. And it always does.
Yeah.
Because as I tell them, the problem, we all think the problem is time, right? The problem is not time. The problem is time management.
Yeah.
A lot of people just, don't know how to manage their time, or don't even think about it. They feel overwhelmed. So we really talk about that, talk about their schedule. Some of them are, working in hospital, nurses with crazy shifts. Some of them are single mothers. So it's hard, but we always find the time. I kind of follow some of the protocol of, I'm sure you've heard about Atomic Habit book by James Clear. So I don't follow everything, obviously, but I think there's some really, really great part in this book.
Mm-hmm.
And associating, a habit with a reward, for example.
Okay.
And that really helps, especially at first. After a while, you won't use that system anymore. But at first, for example, I know for myself, sometimes I really don't want to get up at 5:20 in the morning to get my workout done. I really don't. But then I think, okay, how good I'm going to feel after this, how accomplished or ready to tackle my day. And right after this, I know that I'm going to get, my coffee. I love coffee, and I make, a great latte in the morning. And for me, that's kind of a reward. So I associate it, and those are little things, right? But when you make that association in your brain with, in addition to the feeling of, of wellness that you achieve after a workout, and you do that day after day after day after day, it will switch the way, you think. It will switch your mindset, and then you're going to end up doing it no matter what, without thinking about it.
Yep.
So we go through all that work, basically.
Yep.
And that really helps. And I'm not saying that, okay, one session will, take care of everything and will solve all the problems. sometimes we have to go back to it and reinforce everything.
Yep.
And I have to give them little tips and tricks of everyday life for them to achieve, not binge eating at night or those late night snack or stuff like this, that happens all the time.
Yep.
So we implement those little tricks and tips, and at the end, it really works. It really works. And the goal is not to be perfect. Nobody is,
Right.
and it's not fun either,
Yep.
But to be pretty good most of the time.
Yeah.
To feel balanced. That's the most important part.
And there's a couple things I think of. So one, you mentioned accountability, and when you hire a coach or a trainer, it's you're not just hiring a professional, you're hiring an accountability partner, right? And so that's where you prescribe them the fitness routine, you prescribe them the dietary routine, you prescribe them the certain lifestyle things that they're going to start to put attention on. And now the accountability is there, because when they stray, they got to tell you, right? So one, maybe there's a little bit of, I don't want to do this because then I'll have to tell Morgane.
Yeah.
Or I don't want to eat that bag of potato chips that I otherwise might have grabbed. But there's also just attention on things that people otherwise wouldn't really pay attention to, because you're telling them to pay attention to it and to tell you about it, right? A lot of people don't pay attention to their sleep hygiene. A lot of people don't pay attention to their snacking. A lot of people don't pay attention to their general movement. And when you tell them, I want you to pay attention to this, and then you're going to report back to me, then all of a sudden they realize all of these things that they had absolutely no attention on before, and didn't really associate with, whatever it is that their goals are that they came to you for in the first place.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah, that is very true. And that's also true with movement, for example, mind muscle connection. There's such a difference between just, doing a simple curl like this, not thinking about it, and
Yep.
really thinking about, okay, what muscle am I engaging? How does that feel?
Yeah.
Squeezing at the top, things like that. That changes everything.
Yep.
It's so little. So it's really, yes, directing their attention towards small details that will, change their whole mindset at the end of the day.
And so you mentioned earlier you started incorporating in weight training to your own routine. Is this also a part of the fitness program that you use?
Correct. Yes.
And so I know a lot of women have a bit of trepidation about weight training for fear of getting bulky. So what do you tell those women that are afraid of getting bulky?
That it takes a lot to get bulky. A lot. Not only training, but with nutrition.
Mm-hmm.
You need to put a considerable amount of effort if you want to bulk.
Yeah.
It's called hypertrophy, and it takes so much. Those people they're doing bodybuilding competition and whatnot. It's a huge part of their day. That's almost like a job.
Yep.
So no, we're not there. That's not what we're here for. We're here to be healthy, to tone up, to grow the muscle mass, the lean muscle mass, to drop the fat, but it's not going to get anybody bulky at that point.
There you go. So unless you're lifting weights with significant intention to get bulky, then you will not get bulky. And
yes.
I mean, honestly, largely that applies to men too, although I think men have an easier time bulking up than women. So,
yes.
With women, it's even that much less likely that by lifting heavy weights on a regular basis that you would get bulky. At most likely, you'll just get lean.
Yes, I've been doing that for quite a while, and I don't think I look bulky. So no, it's and even with a progressive overload, which we all need to do if we want to see progress,
Mm-hmm.
You don't get bulky.
Yep.
If anything, you get leaner. So, which is great.
And as you're working with these women on your personal training, do you factor in menstrual cycle?
So yes, it depends what phase they're in.
Right.
But I would say that I tend to go a little bit lighter in weight.
Yep.
A little bit lighter in weight. So maybe more cardio, oriented session,
Uh-huh.
or what we call metcon, so smaller
Sure.
weight, higher amount of reps. So yes, I'll pay attention to that if they do feel like all those symptoms, that they're tired, they're having aches and pains and all of that. So yes, I definitely modify.
Yeah, that's, I think, one of the unique things about working with women is there are just normal hormonal fluctuations that men just don't experience.
That's right.
Yeah.
And in general, not only about, menstrual cycle, but I think throughout the life of, a woman, we have so many ups and downs when it comes to hormones,
Yeah.
right? From pre-puberty to post-menopause.
Mm-hmm.
It's always something new, it seems like, and if you had a couple kids along the way, well, that's that too,
Yep.
So really working with all of this, but really, again, going back to the basics, how are you sleeping? How are you eating? How are you fueling yourself?
Yep.
And I'm not a doctor. I'm not an endocrinologist or anything like that. And there are some issues that do require medical attention and
Mm-hmm.
potentially medication. I'm not saying there's not. But I think that going back, to a healthy baseline before tapping into um, those problem and maybe seeking medical attention is a good thing to do. Kind of a reset, eliminating all those inflammatory ingredients that are just everywhere.
Right.
Everywhere. If you don't eat a fresh produce, chances are you're probably gonna eat unhealthy inflammatory seed oils. You're gonna
Mm-hmm.
eat a bunch of gum, emulsifier, lecithin, all that stuff. This is very, very detrimental to hormonal health.
But
It's
so easy,
disruptive, but yes, highly disruptive.
because everything you buy at the regular grocery store has these things in it.
Everything. It takes, I can't even begin to tell you how long I spend at the grocery store, because if I have to buy something that's packaged, that is not processed, and everybody has to at some
Mm-hmm.
point, right?
Yep.
I spend a lot of time trying to find the brands that are the healthiest, none of them are perfect, but and it's hard, especially so the food industry, obviously, it's a marketing machine, and it's incredibly smart, and it's getting everybody. And that, on top of living in a society that prioritize convenience over everything else.
Yep.
Always looking for the secret pill, the quick fix.
Yep.
When it comes to health and weight loss, and just keeping a lean body mass, there is no quick fix.
Nope.
And
Gotta put the work in. It's all about
I'm
reps.
sure a lot of people don't agree with that, because with all that semaglutide,
Oh,
and
you can take a pill. You can get gastric bypass surgery,
it's absolutely
liposuction.
insane. But again, that might be a quick fix, for a few months. You probably, if you get those injection, and I don't want to go too deep into that, but you will see, a difference.
Mm-hmm.
Is that sustainable? Absolutely not.
Right.
Absolutely not. You're gonna make yourself so sick.
And that's where it comes back to lifestyle, right? You become a lifestyle coach. You teach someone how to have the, not just body composition, but really the overall just health and energy that they want to have.
Yeah, it's important. I finished reading, well, it was probably 2 or 3 months ago, Outlive by Dr. Peter Attia.
Did you? I haven't attempted to tackle that one yet.
It's great. I actually listened to it. I didn't have a paper copy. But
he's so much smarter than me. I'm intimidated by reading that book.
There's some parts that you might need to go back to. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's relatively accessible to to everyone, at least people that are interested in the matter.
Yeah. Actually, I did hear him talking about it on a podcast with someone else, and him saying that it started out as like thousands of pages, and they basically made him edit it down to something that a person like myself could read and understand and not be overwhelmed by.
It's a lot of information, and he talks about a lot of different things, but what it comes down to is, yes, we have lifespan that we're all trying to increase, obviously, But what's also very important, and probably even more important, is health span.
Yep.
And in order to achieve that, you really need to, it's an everyday thing, it's an
Yeah.
everyday. So he also made a great analogy, and I think that's at the very beginning of the book, it's during the intro. He's saying that, doctors, physicians nowadays, they are kind of running around trying to catch the eggs that are falling, to avoid them, just cracking on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
But what needs to be done is actually trying to catch the person. What's the source? What's throwing the eggs?
Yeah.
Um, and I think it's really what's going on. We need to go back to the basics. And I'm not saying that it will cure everything, but prevention of chronic disease, it's so important. And it's not, I feel like we are not putting enough time and effort to understand how to come up, I don't know, either way with a system, or I don't even know. It's just a basic. It's just a base, and we need to start with that.
Yep. Well, unfortunately, with the type of coaching that you give, a lot of the types of coaching that I give and that other trainers with the right approach give, certain things are just resolved by nature of living a life that's just more conducive to being healthy. Like, for example, when I first started when I first started my kind of whole body wellness approach to working with clients that wanted to do something as simple as lose weight, we saw all kinds of amazing side effects, like, hey, guess what? Your blood pressure is better, your cholesterol is better, you have more energy all the time. And that wasn't what I promised, that wasn't what they asked for. It just happened because we fixed things that they were doing that were kind of self-destructive or just not in favor of living a healthy and long life.
Absolutely. Yes. It's funny what results you get by just, changing a few things.
Hydration.
Yeah.
Pretty much everyone is dehydrated. They're chronically dehydrated and they don't know it. And you
Yes.
get them to just
Yeah.
drink enough water, and all of a sudden they're like, wow, my skin's better. My energy is better. Like, everything is better because I drink more water.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of people think that they are hydrated properly because they are constantly drinking. Yes, they're constantly drinking, but they're not drinking water.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's the problem. That's the problem. Reaching for, whatever, seltzer, whatever. It is just not, just drink water.
Yep.
Just drink water. So yeah, there's a lot of things that we can implement easily that will make a big difference.
Yep.
Sleeping is, as I always tell my client, that's, if you have to prioritize something out of everything I'm going to tell you, prioritize sleep.
Yep.
It is more important than you will ever imagine. Regulate those appetite hormones, stress level, gut microbiome that is so receptive to stress, to cortisol. It will just fix so many things.
Yep.
And it's that simple.
Yeah.
It's simple.
I agree. And a lot of people equate getting better sleep with getting more sleep, and it's not the same thing. I mean, it is important to get enough sleep, but I would almost argue that it's more important to get a high quality sleep, because if you get 8 hours of sleep and you never get past your light sleep and you never get that REM sleep and that deep sleep, then it's still not good sleep. But if you get 6 hours and you do a great recurring cycle, then that's going to be better than your 7 or 8 hours of light sleep. If you can get 8 hours of great cyclical sleep where you go through all the stages, then even better, then you've really dialed it in. And I'm 100% on board with that. In fact, I have a sleep program that I created that I'm giving away for free now because I just want people to sleep better, right? I don't want that to be something that holds them back from accomplishing all the things that we're trying to accomplish together, or just that they're trying to be better out in their life. I mean, sleeping better you're just better at everything. You're better at your job. You're better at your relationships. If you get a good night of sleep every day, then you're just better at everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is so important. So what are the things what are the pointers that are in your sleep program?
Well, part of it is sleep environment, right? Just having an environment that is conducive to being able to fall and stay asleep. So managing light, managing noise. A lot of it is the environment that you sleep in or the environment that you're in leading up to sleep. So allowing your body allowing the circadian rhythm to be attuned to the fading of the light, right? The sun is setting, but if you're under bright fluorescent lights until the moment you go to sleep, then your body's really not going to know from a hormonal perspective that it's time to sleep. And it's going to take a lot longer to get into that deep sleep that you should kick into pretty quickly. Nutrition, right? Don't eat up until the last minute before you go to bed. Make sure you stay hydrated, but probably not drinking, 30 ounces of water right before you go to bed, because then you have to get up and go pee.
Exactly. That's going to defeat the purpose a little bit.
Yep, exactly. Just obviously things like movement. So, just making sure you're moving enough throughout the day is going to help you to have better sleep than if you spent all day sitting on your butt, which most people actually do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's little easy things like that. It's things that anyone can do. They can do it for free for the most part. Like there are things you can buy to help to support this effort, but mostly, you can go out and look at the setting sun for free. You can wake up and look at the rising sun for free. You can move your body for free. You can turn off the TV and close the curtains at night for free. So
yeah,
it's
absolutely
things that are very manageable and pretty easy, that a lot of it I think people probably know, they just don't have attention on or don't really want to think about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And those appetite hormones, they also have a circadian rhythm.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Ghrelin, the hormone that tells us that we are hungry. So when you kind of hang around the kitchen or in the living room after dinner a little too long, go sit on the couch, guess what? A couple hours after that, grilling is waking up, telling you to go get a snack. And that's where it starts. So by going to bed at a decent time, you kind of like bypass that whole process,
Right. Yep.
So it's just the little things, like you said.
Yeah, it's if you stack all of these little things and you do them right instead of wrong, then guess what? You fixed your sleep.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also not having that all or nothing mindset constantly. It's just not going to happen overnight, depending where you're starting,
Yep.
Not necessarily with sleep. I'm talking about everything in general.
Yeah.
It's implementing little things little by little, being patient. You're not going to see the result after a week. It takes a while. But once it's there, once it's implemented, once it's second nature, it's here to stay. So that's the beauty of it.
And people hear me talk about this in probably every episode of this podcast, but I love talking about reps. You got to get reps in to create results. Reps create results. So, in the martial arts world, it's like, okay, you got to practice these techniques or these movements, tens or hundreds of times before you're good at them. In the fitness world, you have to do reps of this exercise many, many times over many, many workouts before you really start to see results. Nutritionally, you have to eat well for a while before you see results. It's everything. You have to, if you want to become a morning person, well, you have to wake up early every day for a while before you finally get used to waking up early. I get in my darn cold plunge over here, and I'm becoming cold adapted, but it takes time. It still sucks getting in there, but
it takes time.
I'm a little bit more used to it. I can stay in for longer, and I actually, in the cold out when I'm out in the world, doesn't bother me as much as it used to. So, in all of these things, it's reps. You want to be a stronger, healthier, nicer person, then you have to get reps in doing all the things that are going to get you there.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You have to, rinse and repeat and really trying to break those barriers and build resilience. And I think I'm kind of the same spot with the cold plunging. It's just, I absolutely I'm not a cold person. I like cold weather.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I live in Colorado, great, but so it was hard for me. It was really hard, and I really, really had to break those barriers to
Mm-hmm.
get myself in there. And at first, I could not stay longer than 30 seconds. It
Yep.
was hard. It was incredibly hard. And then you learn how to breathe. You
Yeah.
know, the nervous system is going to be shocked at first. You need to know to breathe and calm down your breathing.
Mm-hmm.
And then, weirdly enough, and that recently happened, you find comfort in the cold,
Yeah.
in the stillness. And it's incredible to witness how, I don't want to say warm because you're not warm, but you're almost comfortable
Yeah.
unless you start moving.
Yeah. You get rid of that thermal layer.
Yeah, exactly. But yes, I don't think I'm being as bothered by the cold as I used to, and that's how you see progress. It's resilience.
And you talk about managing your breathing while you're in there to calm your nerves, right? And you get some good vagus nerve activation by doing the right type of breathing. And so let's talk about that. So, we call that stacking, right? You're stacking cold exposure and breath work in this instance. In your work with your clients, do you do a lot of stacking where they're doing different things at the same time that support each other?
Yes, and I talking about the breathing, I really incorporate the breathing with
Okay.
exercises.
Oh, really? Good.
Yes, yes. It is extremely important, especially when I work with postpartum moms
Mm-hmm.
or hysterectomy patients who
Okay.
really need to, obviously have a different core work to do than anybody else, right?
Yeah.
That needs to be restored, that needs to be really cared for, and we need to be cautious a little bit.
Yeah.
And breathing is the first thing, really. If the breathing is not paired with the right part of the movement, down the road, and I'm not saying in a week, in a month, or, but down the road, if that's something that's done every day for years, we can see some prolapse, some leaks, things like that,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So it's really trying to, excel on the effort and really have that pelvic floor engagement on the right part of the movement.
Yeah.
So it takes a while. It's different, from one movement to another, obviously, but I really try to drag the attention to that part, especially for that demographic.
Yeah. And I love that you mentioned that, because actually I was going to ask if you ever work with pregnant clients as well.
So I've worked with pregnant women.
Mm-hmm.
Currently in my program, I don't have any pregnant women, but I
Yep.
have a lot of postpartum mamas, and I have I want to say 2 or 3 clients that are post hysterectomy.
Okay.
So
Got it.
the approach is, I don't want to say the same, but there's a lot of similarities.
Yeah. And I think back to when my wife was pregnant with our first child. This was before I really got deep into fitness. She was doing CrossFit, and the guidance that she got from her doctor was, well, whatever you were doing leading up to getting pregnant, you can continue to do up until, so many months into your pregnancy. So just keep doing that. Just don't do things that are more intense. And so she did. Like, she kept doing CrossFit. She was taking my self-defense classes, so she came and she kept taking self-defense classes, obviously, and all things being mindful of her midsection and just how she's feeling in general. But that blew a lot of people away. There's this perception that the moment you become pregnant, you have to become sedentary, right? That if you go lift something heavy, even if it's like a jug of water, that something bad will happen. And I think that's a very common misconception. Not that there aren't women that are high risk and need to be careful, but generally speaking, it's quite possible for women that are very much pregnant to get some pretty amazing workouts in.
Oh, absolutely. It's actually doing yourself a disservice if you do not engage in any type of activity while pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
Chances are you're going to have a miserable pregnancy or harder pregnancies,
Yeah.
put it that way, a harder delivery, a longer delivery, emergency C-section, stuff like that.
Yep.
So what I usually recommend is not to engage in something new while pregnant.
Right.
So if you're not a runner, don't pick up running while you're pregnant. Probably
Yep.
not a good idea. But if you have been running, by any means, continue running.
Right.
Unless, something feels mechanically wrong, anything
Right.
like that,
Yep.
obviously. But there is no reason why. I worked out throughout both of my pregnancies
Mhm.
until the very end. Maybe the last week I stopped because, I just needed to go pee every 5 minutes. So that was not very productive.
Right.
But besides that, I kept doing exactly the same thing pretty much. Sometime where I couldn't really breathe when the baby is very high. You need to reduce the intensity, on the cardio, things like that. So little adjustment, but I was always active, and I was lucky enough to have a really good pregnancy, really good deliveries,
Yeah.
really good recoveries. I could not wait for the 6 weeks mark to go back to working out.
Well, and I think that speaks to the fact that you did continue to move, right? Because my wife is kind of the same story. I mean, she sought out personal training at the CrossFit gym when we decided that we wanted to get pregnant. So she could prepare her body for pregnancy and delivery in advance of having to go through that. And just doing that and then just continuing her CrossFit workouts all the way up until she was, I don't know, 7 or 8 months pregnant,
Yeah.
made all the difference, right? Physically speaking, pregnancy went very well for her both times. Delivery was, I don't want to say it was a breeze, but she sure made it look like it. You're
going to get a lot of messages if you
yeah,
say
I know. I'm going to get some hate rained down, but just ask my wife and she'll tell you that delivery was no big deal for her.
Yeah.
And then same thing postpartum, like she recovered very quickly and was just kind of itching to get back to it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So it's a mindset is learning your body, knowing your body, what you can and cannot do. You'll know, you'll figure out if something feels odd,
Yeah.
feels not right, and knowing how you can modify. And there's so many different things you can do. So
Yeah. And this is something that I'm only just starting to scratch the surface of, but do you recommend any kind of lab work as far as looking at hormones or anything like that?
So far, I haven't really delved into it, to
Okay.
be quite honest with
Yeah.
you. I know that there are a lot of coaches and trainers that are implementing those services, or at least, working in collaboration with, labs or, private businesses that do that.
Right.
I think that's, very interesting.
It is
And
interesting.
maybe I will dig into it to understand a little bit more.
Yeah.
What I think is whatever routine exam or labs that we are supposed to get done annually, I should say, are not deep enough.
Right.
That I'm absolutely convinced. I got one recently. When was it? Yes, maybe a couple months ago. I was due for my annual checkup, so I went to my PCP, and I asked him. I said, "Okay, what's in there actually? What's the panel? Tell me." So he goes down, and I said, "How about diabetes? Are we checking on that?" He said, "Not really, unless you ask for it." I'm like, "Okay, I'm going to ask for it."
Yeah.
And there's, so many things that we need to take a closer look at. It's not deep enough. So I think it's great that, those companies, those private companies are here to kind of help us with that, and also make it accessible for everybody to understand, because obviously all those, numbers and stuff can be a little overwhelming. And especially when, okay, you adopt the proper nutrition, the proper exercise routine, you're in a great spot, and you're still feeling some type of ways, it could happen. It could happen, definitely. So I think that's where a closer look that definitely needs to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's something missing there, right? Like you said, because most of us don't know the questions to ask to get the most out of the data that we can get from that type of testing, but we're also not being supported by most of our kind of standard healthcare professionals because they're not giving us all the information that we would need to be able to get a complete picture of our health profile.
Yeah. Well, they learn for many years, obviously, how to, cure symptoms, sometimes cure diseases through medication, things like that.
I would almost amend that to say treat, but yes, sometimes they
Yeah,
cure.
treat, cure. I mean, it depends. It
Yeah,
depends. But they don't learn much about prevention.
right.
Close to zero.
Yeah,
Close to zero. And when it comes to nutrition, is definitely zero.
yep. I've had some doctors as private clients of mine, and there'll be some things that I'm like, okay, let's talk about, this nutrition thing or this lifestyle thing, and I'm sure you already learned about this in medical school, and it's either no, we didn't, or yeah, there was a paragraph in it on that subject in some 800-page book. So yeah, it's they have, and I don't want to knock the healthcare profession because these
No.
guys are amazing resources. I mean, they treat all illnesses and oftentimes very successfully. But there's definitely a lot lacking when it comes to actual healthcare in that training. And I think that's just where having someone like Morgane can supplement that, right? Because you understand what a healthy human body looks like and the things that you have to do to support, your standard healthy human body. And okay, fine, there are some irregularities. Cool, let's bring the doctor in and let's have them run some tests, and here, let me help you kind of know what questions to ask. We are not doctors, but we do have a profound understanding of how the human body works.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really try my best, and I think I'm doing a pretty good job at staying within my scope of practice.
Yeah.
So there's, clients always try to know a little more, and it's just not what I do, and I don't want to, to take that road. So I'm very cautious with it. But when it comes to nutrition and things like that, I think I have a really good understanding of how that works.
Yeah.
And when it comes to the healthcare system and the doctors, yes, they stay in school for so long to learn how to treat, right? To learn how to give us some relief or whatnot. So, and nutrition is such a broad topic that is not very known. There's so much more that we need to discover about it.
Yeah.
And that's why it's our responsibility as coaches, right, to keep ourselves educated as much as we can.
Yep.
Because you know that you got your certification with NASM or whatever other accredited organism to be a nutrition specialist. What they teach you is not enough.
Right. That is true.
Not enough. Sometimes not really what you want to tell your clients. They use guidelines that I know I don't use. I don't believe in. So it's the same thing with the healthcare system. They cannot cover everything. It's extremely complicated. And I will tell you one thing is my mom unfortunately passed away last year of cancer, and she went through a very very hard chemotherapy, right?
Okay.
And she had trouble eating and and all of that. And we were asking recommendation advice to the medical team about how to try to get her to fuel properly as much as we could, right? What were the ingredients that would help? What could we do, and what would be healthy for her to have with all that poison in her body, right? We never got an answer.
Yeah.
It's always I don't know. Whatever she can eat, whatever. So, something's lacking for sure.
And yeah, I have a similar experience. My father passed away almost 2 years ago now from a bone marrow cancer, and we had a very similar experience. He had a good oncologist that he was working with. He did end up doing chemotherapy. And what's interesting is she seemed to have some knowledge of nutrition and supplementation, but she didn't volunteer up any information. So my sister and I did a lot of research. My dad did a lot of research. We were trying to, take as much of a holistic approach as we could, supplementary to the chemotherapy. And so we would come prepared with a lot of questions about the nutritional approach. And we had some okay dialogue with his oncologist on that, but it never would have come up if we hadn't brought it up.
Yeah.
As far as certain vitamins that you can take to support, staying strong through chemotherapy or to support battling cancer. Nutritional protocols. She didn't really have much to say about nutritional protocols other than agreeing that sugar is food for cancer. Carbohydrates and sugar are food for cancer, which then drove me nuts because I would sit in the room with my dad while he was getting chemotherapy, and they would bring around cupcakes and chips and things like that
And-
all the patients are grabbing for because they just want to get that dopamine hit and feel good because they feel like garbage.
Yeah.
Anyway, I better stop talking about that because I'll
Yeah,
get heated. But
yeah, we can go on, and yeah, it's like you would think that, for example, the food that is just being served in hospital cafeteria should be healthier, right? So hospital,
Right.
after all, well, that's biggest amount of garbage I ever seen.
Yep.
That in the public school. I
Yeah.
was listening to a podcast a few weeks ago, and the doctor that was interviewed, I can't remember his name, but he was asking the host, "Do you know which one is the biggest fast food chain in the U.S.?" So he goes on saying Chick-fil-A, McDonald's, whatever. He said, no, it's just the American public school system, and he had numbers to back it up. That is crazy, and that is scary.
Yeah.
So
it's very saddening.
Very saddening. So needless to say that my daughter is not eating the school lunch.
I know. See, and then you got to make your kid the outlier, right? Your kid's got to be the weird kid that brings their own lunch. But
Yeah.
you know what?
They're
going to
mad.
be healthier. They're going to be happier.
I was mad too. I was mad at my mom a few times too, and it was a long time ago. A long time ago. But now I understand.
Yeah.
So one day.
Yeah. Hindsight is a beautiful thing. If you can come to a place of having good hindsight.
Yeah.
Same thing. When I was a kid, my mom was buying the granola cereal from the health food store for breakfast, and I'm like, man, every time I go to my friend's house, I get Fruit Loops and Lucky Charms, and it's amazing, and I love it. And I come home and I got to eat this crap granola, and I'm like, okay, well, now I would never ever give Fruit Loops or Lucky Charms to my kid.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
So Morgane, I have a lot of female listeners that tune into this podcast regularly, and I think a lot of them are also looking for not just advice on fitness and nutrition and body composition, but possibly coaching as well. So if folks want to get in touch with you, is that just through your website? Do you have an intake form on there?
So I have a couple ways to get in touch with me. I have an Instagram that I started a few months ago.
Okay.
So it's at Morgane, so MORGANE _ Burke, BURKE. So I read all my DMs and all that.
Okay.
And otherwise on Google, my business is called Morgane Burke Fitness, and I have a good Google listing with a few links on there.
Okay.
And all the information. So
cool. And so for anyone listening, I will link to these in the show notes for today's episode at the Superhuman Blueprint Podcast.com. So just go to the Superhuman Blueprint Podcast.com, and I will make sure you have direct links to contact Morgane if you want to learn more or to work with her. Morgane, any last things before we wrap up?
No, I think we covered it all. I mean, we could go on and on and on, I guess.
There's a lot of rabbit holes we've kind of gone around.
Yes, for sure. But thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I know you're gonna have a lot of great episodes on your podcast. So looking forward to listening to all of them.
Yeah, well, it's been a pleasure having you here. It's been a great conversation, and all I can say is I appreciate the work you're doing, because things like what you're doing just makes the world a better place.
Well, that's the goal. And throwing that right back at you.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Take care.
Bye, Drew. Thank you.
Bye, Morgane.
Bye.